Hey Ken, how are you?
Hi, good to see you again.
Good to see you. So I'm here with Ken Blackman, who is an outstanding coach in relationships and primarily with couples. And you also work with your wife. But can you say a few things to describe your work? Um,
Yeah, um, I've been working on sex, relationships, communication, intimacy, sensuality for over 20 years. My first decade was mostly focused on what happens in the bedroom, like how to have a great love life.
hmm,
And I learned a lot about how men and women relate with each other in general by having a lens, a focus on how they relate with each other in the bedroom. That tells you so much.
hmm.
And so I have expanded, and now I mostly coach couples. I mostly do relationship coaching, and often that will include a component where we focus on how their love life is. But mostly it has to do with how they relate with each other.
Got it. Such a great and compelling topic, you know. So Ken and I were just chatting before we hopped on, and one thing that I know from our previous talks and speaking with Ken is that what I would say the fundamental ingredient is in relationship through talking to Ken is this idea of connection. And
Yeah.
so where we thought we would explore today is what is it? How do I get one? How do I build it? Um, so yeah, if you can start with that.
Yeah, this is a an interesting topic for me because on the one hand it's so foundational, and on the other I think I use that word in a very particular way
Hmm.
that doesn't necessarily have an easy definition. Like the definition is kind of like love, where the definition shows up through examples. But I think the shortest way of explaining it is, um, I'll explain it by analogy. Um, so if you're alone, you can have a really good life. I don't know if we've talked about this on the last episode, but you
A
can
little
have an
bit,
amazing life.
and we're going to repeat, and that's great because I think
Great.
so much
Okay,
of what
good.
you've shared is bears repeating. So
Yeah. So you can have an amazing life by yourself. You can just fill your life with rich experiences. You can have a life of service, which is deeply fulfilling. You can, ha eat the best food. You can travel. Um, but if you're doing those things alone, there are some experiences you can only have with another human being or another living being.
mm,
And if that's missing, like we are as human beings, we're built for connection. We are, we thrive on connection. We're highly social. We're the most social animals there are.
mm,
And um, like I don't, I babies who are given all the like they're kept warm and they have food and all these things, but they're deprived of like physical connection with their mom.
mm,
Their uh their physiology destabilizes and they get sick and they die.
mm,
So this is a basic human need. And so the way I define connection is that which you can only experience with another living creature. So I can experience connection with my cat. We
mhm,
experience amazing connection with a dog. We
mm,
experience connection with our friends, our family. I if I you could extend it to say we feel connection with rocks, but I that's where I draw the lines. Like no, it's that thing we experience with a living creature. With a rock, it's static. I'm the dynamic one.
mhm, mhm,
So, like if you're standing on the beach at sunset and you're looking, that's a whole experience. But if you're standing there with somebody holding hands and talking about how beautiful it is, that is a nutrient unto itself that's different from all the other experiences. Like it's unique. It can't be replaced by anything you can do alone. And so that's my long-winded sort of kind of circular definition of what connection is. It's that nutrient that we hunger for, that we get when we're interacting with another human being.
And is it, maybe a way of describing it is shared experience? Is that
Yeah, there's a
part
bunch
of
of
it, or?
components. There's shared experience. So I'm not just doing this by myself. I'm actually co-experiencing it with another human being.
Mm,
There's empathy. Um, there's being like the feeling of being seen and heard is a part of it. You
mm,
know, there's all these things, being seen and heard and accepted for you who you are. There's and we're naming kind of the positive ones, and there's also like fighting is also connection. Like
mm,
you wouldn't, like, you know how they say the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference.
mhm,
So whether you're whether you're deeply in love with someone, whether you're fighting with someone, you're still in connection with them.
mm,
Disconnection happens like when you're if there is nothing there, you can't feel them at all,
mm.
if that makes sense.
Um, okay, so many people are in relationship, but they're not experiencing connection. So
Connection.
maybe
Yeah.
we can look at it that way as well. Like
Yeah.
what is it? Where is it that it breaks down? Is it that
Yeah.
you stop being, you stop experiencing with the other person, or you stop being available, or?
Yeah. It's a
I'm
good
going to keep
question.
poking at this from different
No, this is
directions.
great.
So,
This is beautiful, and this is exactly the right direction to go. So, I often have a couples who they're like you said, they're together. They look like a couple. Sometimes one of them will use the word presence, like "Are you present?" Or they'll
mm,
say something like, I know you're here, but I can't feel you. And then the other person's like, well, what does that even mean to be able to feel me?
mm,
I'm like, I'm
mm,
here, you know. So what is this thing that's trying to be pointed to or trying to be described, this undescribable thing?
mm,
And I think it does have to do with empathy and shared experience. And I want to give a little bit more about this. So emotions originally evolved as a way of like it's a physiological response to the environment. So the first thing that developed was our ability to regulate hot and cold. So if it
mm,
gets cold, you know, we shiver and our blood rushes away from our skin. If we're hot, we sweat and um, you know, the blood rushes to the skin to shed off heat.
mm,
So that same physiological, it's kind of like a thermostat, right?
mhm,
That same way of physiologic, like changing your physiology in response to the environment, is where emotions come from.
mm,
So the next thing that developed was if we perceive danger, we get a shot of adrenaline and our body, like the heartbeat speeds up and all this stuff, right? It's
mhm,
a heightened state that we couldn't stay in forever,
mm,
but when it's needed, like it's like hitting the afterburners, right? Like we couldn't operate that way normally, but we have it
mm,
available.
mhm,
So uh, then there's like fear, anger to protect our territory. Um, these different basic foundational emotions, right?
mhm,
Um, and the next thing that developed was our ability to share emotions. So social animals, if one animal is scared, the other one will feel scared.
mm,
That's very advantageous because that means one person can be the sentinel. Remember, no words yet. One person is a sentinel. All they have to do is be scared, and all
mm,
the other animals can sense it. So emotions by design are they're contagious.
mm,
It's supposed to be that way. If one
mm,
of us gets nauseous and throws up, the others in the community are going to get nauseous and they may throw up too, which is good because maybe they ate the same poisonous
mm.
thing that you ate, right? So
Yeah.
for us to feel each other. And so we're built in such a way that we feel each other deeply. So when you're talking about your pain and I can experience, not that it hurts me, but I can co-experience it with you, that
Mm.
shared experience. I think is part of what is meant when people say, we're together, but are we connected? Um,
And
like if one person really can't, like one person is feeling a lot and the other one isn't feeling anything, that in a way that you can experience that as disconnection, if that makes sense.
got it. And that makes sense. It's like they're missing the
Yeah.
signals in a certain sense. So that would be that's sort of a first opportunity for a point of kind of curriculum. It's like, are you available to experience what this person in front of you is experiencing?
Yeah.
Is there something about the acknowledgement or kind of looping back with that experience? So you share something with me and I'm demonstrating that I got it in some way, or I'm empathetic, or I
Yeah. I mean,
acknowledge it, or
there's been a bunch of tools that have been designed to compensate when connection isn't there or to mimic connection, but aren't actually, they might serve as good reminders, but I think it's what would naturally happen if you were connected. So let me give
if
you an
you're
example. So
well, I want to underscore what you just said. It's
yeah,
what would naturally happen if you're connected. There would
yeah,
be a genuine response,
yeah,
uh, as
yeah,
opposed to a scripted response. And yeah, I want to make that clear also. Yeah.
yeah. So for example, um, let's say two people are together, but they're kind of transactional about it. They don't think of it this way, but it's like I'm in this relationship to get my needs met,
Mm,
and my needs met are to get um, praise, to
mm,
get told I'm doing well. Like I will do stuff for you, but the payback for me is that you tell me how good I'm doing, you praise me. Sex, I want sex. Like I don't want to come off as like I have some sort of criteria, but if you didn't fuck me for a couple weeks, I would start to get grumpy and start to be upset about it because I'm not getting, that's a thing.
hmm
That's a reason I'm in this relationship. So let's say that a couple is operating this way, like they're thinking about their own needs and what they do is think about what can I do to get my partner to do these things that I want them to do. Okay?
hmm
So in this transactional type of, like if you think transactionally, like I know what I want from my sorry. I know what I want from my partner, and I am figuring out what I need to do to get my partner to give me these things that I want. Whatever it is. I want gifts.
hmm
My partner is the breadwinner and I want them to buy me things. I want them
mm,
to, take us out to dinner sometimes or whatever that want list is.
hmm
But let's say that you get transactional about it. Like I am concerned with my needs.
mm,
It's in a relationship that where each person is trying to get their own needs met, that this way of that can feel very disconnected,
mm,
meaning they're not really feeling each other, or like they're like I will put my attention on what you say your needs are to the degree that you will then come around and then meet my needs, right?
hmm
So there isn't actually they're not they either aren't there for connection or they don't realize that they're there for connection. They have this other list of criteria.
hmm
So that is one way to run a relationship, and you could be disconnected and fighting and never be happy. Another way is to say mainly the reason I'm in this relationship is to experience connection with you. So there are things I want to do. I want to hear what you want to do. We'll find out things we both want to do, but mainly I want to do things together with you. I want to create a life together with you. I want, like, when we have sex, I don't want you to just give me sex. I want to experience your enjoyment in sex. That's important to me. Like, I want to actually slow down enough to find out what you like in bed. And because your enjoyment of the sex is part of what feels good to me. I don't just want you to spread your legs. So this is a completely different way of approaching it's a different way of understanding why you're together. You're saying the connection is actually the thing that I'm here for. And I want to find ways to experience the moments that we have when we're grocery shopping or whatever, that we have moments of experience. That's where I get fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens is um, you it becomes harder to for one person to be having a good time when the other person isn't having a good time. So like it's no longer am I getting my needs met. I'm like, I feel equally when my partner is unhappy, when my partner is unfulfilled, it is as painful for me as it is for them. So I feel as incentivized to find out what they need
Mm-hmm.
as I do to try and get them to fill my needs. Then we're talking like our primary reason for being together is to experience the connection that we feel when we're doing life together.
Got it.
And then all the things you mentioned, like when one person says, when you did that thing, that really hurt. And you would naturally say, wow, thank you for telling me that. I can sense that really bugged you, and I can see why that really bugged you. Is there anything that you want me to do different? How would you like me to do that in the future? Like all the tools that are to me kind of mimics of what naturally happens when we're operating in a state of connection. Like when you love somebody, you are highly incentivized to like their wants and needs become your wants and needs.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
how is this landing with you? Is this making
good.
sense?
Yeah, and I think the two things that I'll really underscore, I mean, there was a lot there.
Yeah.
One is if I find myself walking down a road where I feel like I'm not getting my needs met and I'm trying to get them met sort of transactionally, that I'm going to see a big sign in the road that says you're going the wrong direction. Like the fork in the road you want to take is build connection.
Mm-hmm.
So realizing that isn't the method, that isn't the tool, this transactional thing, and to return to this idea of how can I connect again with this person, and that's what will really satisfy all those things that I feel like I'm not getting.
Yeah. I have a theory,
Hmm.
and not everybody will adopt this theory, but I have a theory that connection in the long run, connection is the real reason why we get into relationship in the first place. It's actually the thing that in the long run that we actually wanted all along. So
Hmm.
if I have a woman who um like um treats me well, cooks me dinner, has lots of positive things to say about me, is open and lets me have sex with her whenever I want to, you know, is doing all the kind of the checklist things. She's let's say she's physically attractive. Let's say she makes money. Like let's say all the things that would be on your list are there. But there's this way in which I can't really feel her over there, like, or there's a part of her that is unhappy, but she kind of hides it from me, right? So my theory is in a long-term relationship that eventually I'm going to realize that all those other things, like there's something missing that is actually more important than all those other seemingly positive things that I listed,
Hmm.
and that um, in the long run, I would trade that list for the kind of empathetic connection that is missing.
Hmm.
And that's actually the thing that we're hungry for. And especially, I'm going to make this a generalization. Um, I just want to say beforehand that all of my generalizations, especially gender generalizations, I already know are bullshit. I know they're bullshit, but I'm going to say one anyway,
Great.
which is that um, we men, especially men of a certain generation, we were brought up in such a way that we learned how to get our nutrient of connection through sex. And a lot of times when I see the disparity between men and women in like he wants more sex, she wants better sex, you know, the disparity is because we learn to equate sex with that nutrient. And so this thing we're starving for, um, that we put pressure on our sex life to fulfill that. And
Mm,
it's only when you have ample, excellent sex that you start to realize, oh, that was never the thing. That wasn't actually the
right.
thing in the first place.
Right. Right.
And so
Mm,
there was a point in my life where I was focused on sex and I had the chance to get to see what that did, what was fulfilling about sex, and more importantly, what was not fulfilling and what I had been attributing, what I had been projecting onto what I
mm,
would feel if I got all the sex that I wanted. And something about that had me be able to see women in a different way and to
mm,
connect with them in a different way that had nothing to do with sex and that was deeply fulfilling.
mm.
And so all of a sudden, this idea of like, I know I'm wandering wildly here from the topic, but
This is
you
good.
know,
Yeah.
like this idea of the friend zone
Mm,
completely shattered. I don't like friendship with a woman is amazing. Like it can be
mm,
the one of the most deeply fulfilling things that we as a man can experience. And
mm,
my marriage is based on friendship. My best relationships with women, whether they included great sex or coupledom or romance or any of that stuff, was based on friendship. So anyway, this is the path where I started to see connection as this foundational thing that we all are starving for and don't always know how to get that need met.
what I was going to try to make this a question. What one thing I observed as you're talking, and it, I'm I'm mind reading a little bit based on what you're saying, but you you bring it. It seems like you bring an incredible curiosity into the relationship, curiosity about the person
Yeah,
and
yeah.
how to connect. And I guess that's what I'm. The question I want to ask is, if someone's in relationship and they're not quite sure how to connect,
Hmm.
where can they begin?
Where do you
How can
start?
they get curious about
Yeah,
how to connect with this person or how to connect more
yeah,
deeply? Or
yeah. I mean, it's kind of it's a great question, and also at the same time, it's kind of a question that is its own answer because curiosity is the thing.
mm,
Like who is this person? What are their wants and needs? Like, let's say let's say um I'll just make up a scenario. So let's say I'm in this relationship. She nags me all the time. She criticizes me all the time. She complains about everything. Um I try my hardest to figure out what she wants, but sometimes it feels like I can't win. Like no path is actually gonna, make her happy.
mm,
Or like she's told me contradictory things, or she accuses me of things that I know aren't true. Like she makes these accusations about things that I did, but my memory of those events is different. Like there's something going on here.
mm-hmm,
So now I will admit I'm a relationship coach, so I do this for a living. It's my day job to dig
right.
in and find out what's going on. But this is something you can do is to say, like, what's what's really going on here? So, for example, um, how long have you been angry with me? When, when, what's your earliest memory of being angry? Like when, when was this, like if you say when was this pattern established, kind of discounting it, but that's what you're curious about. Like why is it that we're arguing about the dishes tonight? If it isn't, like, maybe it's not about the dishes, but you seem deeply unhappy.
Like what's really going on? Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't want to discount that you're upset with me about the dishes. It's not to discount what you're saying, but like you've been angry at me about a lot of different things for a long time. Can we kind of go back and see where that started? I remember there was a time when we were happy. Can
Mm,
you tell me about the first time where you just felt disappointed or betrayed, you know? Like
mm,
I'm opening a door for this person to share with me, um, like to get down to the core where it's not just a pattern of anger, a pattern of fighting,
mm,
but like what how far back can we go? Like what thing in the past needs to be rectified, or how am I constantly being that is driving you crazy? Do you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
these are the kinds of questions like I want to know, you know, like tell me. And then to listen. The hardest thing to do is to not have our critic. They're going to say a bunch of stuff. It would be
Mm,
easy for us to say, well, that's not true. You got
hmm,
me totally wrong. I don't
mm,
remember it that way. You know, like why would that even like to argue even internally with them, but just to slow down and stop my inner dialogue enough to hear their experience. What
mm.
is your experience? Um, and then go from
Whether
there. I
it
mean, there's,
matches your experience or not.
yeah, yeah. It literally, for this exercise, it doesn't matter whether it matches what I believe. What's important is that I get a sense of what their experience is. What
Mm,
is it that's bothering you? Like you, I want to see the world through your eyes before I judge it according to my own perspective. Let me keep asking questions until I really see the world the way you see it.
mm.
And um, like,
And then do you get to fix it?
well, so the
I'm
before
being
so before you can go,
I'm
yeah,
being
before you can
cheeky.
go
Yeah.
to either arguing with it or trying to just decide what to fix it, the first thing that needs to happen is, so remember you were talking about, so do you echo back what they said? Well, there is a way. So if you're doing this by rote, it's not going to work.
Mm,
But there comes a place where you're like, I really get what you're saying. I'm not going to even go to whether I agree with you or not. That's not the point. I'm not even going to bring that up. I just like, I honestly get what you're saying. I hear you saying, and then you do say back in your own words. You don't repeat their words. It's
mm,
like it seems like that time when I lied to you about so and so. Like we talked about it, and I thought it was resolved, but I can see now that it actually wasn't resolved. It's like
mm,
you really felt betrayed by me doing that, and I'm sorry that um we kind of glossed over it and I thought it was resolved. I apologize for that.
mm,
I can see that it really cut you more deeply than either of us realized, and certainly more than you've been like, maybe I haven't made it safe for you to tell me that this is what was bothering you. Like I can see I would be feel you would feel unsafe. So only when you can say what they're experiencing, they go, yes, thank you, I feel seen.
mm.
Only when you've gotten to that place can you turn your attention to,
Where do
um,
we go now? Or
yeah, would you like to hear my experience? Or do you have a request for, is there something you'd like me to do now? Do differently? Would an apology feel good to you?
mm,
Like only after you've done the work to really, like, you can't pretend to get what they're saying by repeating their words. You actually have to, as long as you are in slight disagreement internally, you haven't actually asked the questions or heard enough to see the world through their eyes. When you see the world through their eyes, they will tell you that you're seeing it the way they see it. Then you can turn your attention to what can we do now to rekindle our connection.
So I think the killer ability that is required for you to do what you just described is a willingness to hear
Mhm,
what the other person is experiencing and
mhm.
not react, not get defensive.
Yeah,
And that can be tough, right?
it can be super tough. And this is where, connection is everything. Like, am I here to get my needs met and to get, like, I'm tired of, so on the one side would be, I'm tired of her complaining. I really want her to stop complaining. Um, I'm gonna do this exercise. Hopefully she'll finally get over it this time. Like,
Right.
I'm giving, look how much fucking time I'm giving her. I'm giving her my undivided attention for a whole 45 minutes. Hopefully finally she'll get back to being nice to me. Because that's one way of operating.
Mm.
The other way of operating is, this person is deeply important to me. This person is like, oh my God, they're telling me that they've been upset for this long and I've just been glossing over it. Like, like, you can ask yourself, how important is this person to you? Like, if they're important to you, their happiness becomes deeply, like, you become deeply invested in their happiness. And so then the skills that we're talking about become naturally. Like, I want to know what's been hurting you. I want to know what's been bothering you. I want to know, like, tell me. I I've been so judgmental of you and so in my own opinions about you that I haven't even stopped to listen to you. So these are natural abilities when you're, I'll say in my languaging, when you're operating from connection, meaning, oh my God, this person is, if especially if this is your life partner, like,
Hmm.
this is the person I've chosen to do life with. How could it be that I don't care deeply about what's going on with them? That, how could I think that them doing what I want while they're unhappy would be, I would like,
Is a good thing.
is
Yeah.
a good thing, you know? So there is this awakening of a part of your brain, and I mean that literally, like, there are parts of our brain that are wired for this kind of two-way, like, the emotional brain is a transceiver, it's a transmitter and a receiver. And I've had to shut that thing down in order to be living with an angry human being. And, like, I've had to numb my spidey sense, my antennas, in order to not get singed by this person who's angry all the time. Well, if you want to awaken, like, open that up, you need to actually open a channel through which some things might come through that don't feel good. But it's a tenth of what they're feeling inside of them. Like, all you're doing is blunt, like, you've been blocking pain therein
Mm.
that you don't want to feel a part of. Whereas if you open that channel, then you're having that pain together and you can come up with a solution together. Do you see? Like, this is now we're kind of fleshing out my definition of what it means to be connected to somebody.
Yeah. And when you were in that situation with somebody who was angry all the time, did you ever walk away and just say, this is too much for my nervous system?
Oh
Or
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah. Like, you have, so you have to grow your capacity to feel another person's pain. You have to grow your capacity to be able to feel your own pain. Um, but you also, there is a limit beyond what you have to know where your limit is. Like, oh my God, this is more than I can handle. We have to pause the conversation right now because I just feel fried.
yeah, I was going to go somewhere else, but it's too big of a tangent at the moment. It's for next time.
Yeah.
What I will ask is, when you're listening and seeking to understand, that's different than agreeing.
Yes, it is.
And,
Yes.
because sometimes people may just have a different opinion
That's right.
or a different reality. I mean, the political environment tells
Yeah.
us everything about that, right?
Yeah.
So what do
This
you do
is,
then, I guess, is the
yeah,
question.
yeah. You hit it on the nose. So there are times when we can just a a, a, a conversation where we recognize that we disagree. It can even be a heated argument. Like Anna and I aren't my wife and I aren't afraid to like get passionate about what we believe in, right? Like
Mm,
that's a thing.
mm,
Um, but there you I believe that you can't come to the only way that when we're in that situation, the only way we ever get to something we both can get on the same page is if one of us sets aside our belief for long enough to really get the other person's point of view. Like I said, once they feel seen and heard, then maybe the door will open to how I see things and how I want them to be, or how I see things differently. But when you're both stuck in your own world, you're never going to move forward from there. Like
mm,
one of you has to set your belief system aside enough to hear the other person. That's the first step in getting to some, and sometimes that's enough. Sometimes that's all that, like there's a part of us that just wants to be seen and heard. And sometimes that's 90% of it. But even if it's not, even if it's like uh, if I can't say, would you like to hear how I view things, or my experience of this, or my perspective, or why I think we should do it this way, if until they feel um like their way of seeing things has been fully, like I actually get what it is that they're saying. Sometimes where we're stuck is, you just don't see me, you don't hear me, you're not even hearing me. And
mm.
both people are saying that. It's like, you're not even hearing what I'm saying.
Right.
So that's where the deadlock happens, right? You can't move forward until that deadlock happens, and sometimes that requires one or the other person. Can't be the same person every time. Like if you're in a committed relationship, it can't be the same person every time. Both people need to develop this skill. But one of you is going to need to set your perspective aside enough that the other person can actually be seen and heard and understood, and the world is seen through their eyes. Only when I see how Anna sees things do I even have something relevant to say about it. Because maybe I'm just not hearing her right. But
Mm,
once I actually hear, oh yeah, okay, I really get what you're saying, then whatever I say that is in contrast to that actually has, first of all, more weight, because she knows that I get what she's saying, but also, like, it can be a sanity check. Like, okay, now I see how you see things. I actually have a way that I want to talk to this thing that you're talking about,
mm.
right? Where now I have her perspective, I have my perspective, and I can talk about the two of them without uh knocking hers down or dismissing hers.
Invalidating. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I read this book a number of years ago, and this is a psychotherapist who deals with relationships, and he uses a very, I would say, an inverted model of what a lot of people do. I think the traditional approach is, we're going to find the pain and go right into the heart of it and try to
Mm.
fix it, try to untangle it. And this person, and I'll have to dig up the name. He feels that isn't always a healthy approach. That what you should do is build connection
mm,
and that then those things take care of themselves. So
mm,
to share an experience that I had, what with one of my best friends, we got into such discord about the political situation, a number of years ago, that we really couldn't even talk anymore. I mean, it was
mm,
that bad. It was really, it was very hurtful. And
mm,
and we went for a certain number of months without talking. This is one of my closest friends. And finally I just thought, you know what, I'm going to try something different. I'm not going to talk about politics, and I'm
mm,
just going to build connection where we had it in the past,
mm.
which could look like me keeping things on the surface. And it looked like that, but it was actually building connection. And then once we had sort of restored the goodwill, one day we actually had a very, you know, rich conversation about politics.
Mm.
And it didn't devolve into fighting in the same way.
Mm.
So it was really interesting.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And you're absolutely right. Sometimes you can't go directly to the sore spot. You actually have to create um kind of like an umbilical cord of like just the basics of having a connected experience with this person before you can talk about the hard stuff. Absolutely,
Mm,
I agree with that.
mm. Um, I'm just checking the time. Okay, I think we're okay. Um, I did want to ask you, which I mentioned before the call, what is it in this moment that you're most excited about in your work?
Hmm. I love this question. Um, I so none of us were taught how to have good relationships, and there aren't like these days. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of really good, healthy models out there that we can look at and say that's how it's done.
Mm,
Um, and uh, I see so many couples who feel hopeless. Where I get excited is when I'm on the call with a couple for the first time and they're telling me all of their problems and they believe that they're convincing me that their situation is hopeless. Like they believe that they have this fear that I'm going to say, yeah, I think you guys should break up.
you're
That's
right.
my, like,
Yeah.
I don't need, but knowing what I know about, like, as I listen to them, I can see, oh, this is where they are. This is what I know for sure is possible for them to be. This is what would be required from each of them, like these shifts. And I can say, if I can say it to them in a way that has them see that they're way closer to having a great relationship than they believe themselves.
Mm,
And um, you know, because nobody has training in this, our situations feel hopeless when really no, in 3 months, in 6 months, in 9 months, we can get you to a place that's even beyond what your best, like you've told me what your best hopes are. I see what's possible for you. It's even beyond that. And yes, it's entirely doable. You guys are coachable, you listen. These are solvable problems, and yeah, we can do some great work. That moment is so gratifying for me. Um, and I can see the hopelessness start to shift into hope.
I mean, it's amazing. It's like you're saying, oh, I discovered nuclear fission, and I have it right here. It's I'm wondering
Yeah,
how they believe you. you know um because I think
yeah,
so many people have sort of hit their head against the wall
yeah,
endlessly. And like you said, I mean,
yeah.
there are books out there, but usually what the books that I've read, uh it's hard for me to see how what they're saying leads to this happy place
Yeah.
or fulfilling place.
Yeah, there's this very there's this kind of paradoxical thing. When I first started out, um, and I would get on a call, people would ask me about my credentials, what makes me qualified to do this, all this stuff. I never get asked those kinds of questions these days. Um, and I mean, sometimes it's because they've been referred to me and they saw some friends of theirs who got good
Hmm.
results and said, hey, whatever, I don't know, like you guys have gone through, but
Yeah.
so sometimes there's reputation or they just have heard something about me. But usually what happens is on a call like this, I just ask a bunch of questions. But what I've had people tell me is that after the fact, when they're talking about it, I've had them say the questions Ken asked uh, showed how much he knows about the topic. Like, I
Mm.
don't know how he did it, but he asked questions that led right to the sticking point. I don't know how he got there in like, so quickly, but something about the way that I ask questions, and I don't really think about it. Like, I don't do a lot of convincing.
Mm.
Um, but something about the way that I
But
ask
that is
questions
convincing.
communicates to them that I know what the fuck I'm talking about.
Hmm.
And so for what it's worth,
Great.
that's that just the process that I take them through reassures them that they're in good hands.
Mm. And just so people listening have an idea, you work primarily with couples? You work with individuals, or what? How can people access you, and
Yeah.
what can they do?
I occasionally work with individuals, primarily though I like I work with the reason I work with couples primarily is because you have someone that you're doing the grappling with, and you have skin in the game to make it good. So that means I can ask you to do tough stuff because you have an investment in having this relationship go well.
Mm.
Um, so mostly couples, and often I'll talk to a couple and there'll be something that I'll hear that will say, "Oh, this is actually something my wife would be really good at. I'm going to bring her in on our coaching package because she has magic that I don't have. She's good at
Mm.
stuff that I like. I just watch her sometimes and I'm slack-jawed. She's like doing magic that is like she's doing incantations in some language that I don't understand, but the client feels seen in a way that I could never do, and vice versa. Like we have different styles and we complement each other. So sometimes I'll bring my wife in because I can
Great.
just feel that that's what's needed.
Okay. So, well, this is wonderful and rich, and uh, for me, it's always inviting the next conversation. Because
Mm,
every time I talk to you, I feel like, wow, I just got all this stuff answered, and oh no, now I have a bunch more questions. Um, so
yeah,
we'll link all your stuff in the notes, and thank you so
fantastic.
much. It's always
Oh,
such
my pleasure.
a pleasure. Yeah,
Yeah, you asked questions that draw out such good conversation. So thank you for
great,
this. Yeah.
great. Thanks. All right.